to the Detailer's Dock, anchoring you in the world of marine detailing. Whether you're a seasoned detailer or just starting out, this is where every detail matters, with your host, Captain Ken Mercer from Marine Detail Supply Company.
I'm really excited for this episode. We have the one and only Captain Jay Withers with Guidelines TV with us. But before we get into start talking about you, Jay, I do want to let everyone out there that's watching this and listening know that we've already filmed a prior podcast with Chris Metcalf from Flex, which is a tool manufacturer. And just know there's some exciting news that's coming out in the tool world. So make sure, if you don't already subscribe to this podcast or watch us on YouTube, you need to make sure that you do that, because once I'm able to share that information with you, we will release it. And I'm telling you, it's going to be exciting for the industry. So stay tuned with that. We're here at the headquarters of Marine Detail Supply in Fort Myers, Florida. The reason why I kind of brought you in, Jay, is one, I kind of want to get a little backstory of how you became a captain. I know the story, but I think a lot of people want to hear it because I think it's a good one, right? But for those of you watching and listening out here, I can honestly tell you, you are probably the most anal when it comes to keeping a boat clean more than anybody I know. And the craziest part is you're on the water how many days out of the year generally?
I'm probably 250. Yeah, between filming
so just
and
a couple. Kind of give me the history of what made you want to be a fishing captain, right?
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me on this.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to sit down and chat with you about it and share a little bit of my story of where my OCD side of it comes from keeping boats clean.
Oh, I'm excited.
In my past life, I was a diamond dealer and jewelry designer, and a lot of...
A diamond dealer?
Yeah. Yeah, so in that business, it's French cuffs, it's suit and tie, it's very neat and orderly, and I think that was kind of the start of my obsession
OCD?
of keeping it clean all the time, right?
Okay.
So I did that through my 20s. I got married early at 22 years old, and that's all my wife and I knew was the diamond business. And when I was not working, I was fishing. And my passion for fishing
And where were you at?
in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay,
you
so
know,
there's
some giant mecca for the fishing industry.
yeah, okay, yeah.
So there was a time where I was working so much that the short little windows I had to go fishing were not long enough. That's
Right.
the bottom line. So
Is it ever?
no, it's never. And I tell everybody, you go fishing when you can, right? So many times I would be just getting off work and run to the river and try to catch some smallmouth and get home before dark. And so that was kind of my passion, just led into, I've been fishing since I was 3 years old. My
Right.
grandparents would take me on summer vacations every year, and that's kind of what started the passion for fishing. But it got more and more serious as I got older, and in the diamond business and the short window we have here, I'll just tell you that in the diamond business, every company, every industry has trade shows. Well, we travel to these trade shows. Well, they never send jewelers to cold places. We send them to Florida, we send them to San Diego, we send them to Georgia, a lot of cool places. Well, I hired fishing guides in all those locations.
Okay.
So prior to being a fishing guide, I probably went on 17, maybe 18 guided trips in all different parts of the country. And I came to Florida in 1998 and hired a guide out of Anna Maria Island. And bottom line is, myself and another jeweler hired this guide, had no idea what to expect. Showed up to the dock, the guy had flip-flop shorts and t-shirt on an 18-foot flats boat. We caught a pile of redfish in the Manatee River. At the end of the day, I gave that guy $500. I jumped back on a plane the next day to snow, sleet, and his three-piece suit and French cuffs. And I was like, something's drastically wrong with this picture.
Right.
So that is like, in my head, what started the whole process of like, maybe there's something different. Maybe there's another avenue that I can pursue. And then following through a couple years later, in September of '01, I came to visit Florida, specifically Charlotte Harbor. Found it on the Atlas when we used to use the Atlas, right?
You're starting to show your age.
Yeah, I know.
Google Maps wasn't around then.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, not at all. And neither was any of the social media game. But so I found Charlotte Harbor on the Atlas. It was a cool place that I felt was not populated by like Tampa or Fort Myers, and I wanted to be in an area that was still quiet town USA, for lack of a better word.
At that time,
At that time, that's right.
It's not like that anymore.
So I never fished when I came down in September of '01, and I just hung out at tackle shops, went and looked at fishing piers and looked at property, kind of putting my game plan together. I went back home, took my wife to a Monday Night Football game, had some adult beverages and some nachos, and hey babe, what do you think about moving to Florida? Oh, hey, you think about starting a shop down here? Not exactly.
So not a diamond shop.
She was thinking, because that's all she knew was the diamond business. So she thought, well, hey, we're going to move to the Sunshine State and start a diamond business down there. And look, to be honest, the diamond business was good to us.
Sure.
We were in our 20s, married, no kids. It was pretty solid, right?
Sure.
And I wouldn't discourage anybody from getting in that business, but you have to know that you're going to live in that building, right? So I wanted to spend more time outdoors, and I convinced her, hey, let's.
You wanted to work in flip-flops.
100%, 100%. And that's the thing. When she says, well, and I told her, I say, what do you think about moving to Florida? And she's like, well, are we talking starting a diamond business? I'm like, no, actually,
not exactly.
Thinking about being a fishing guide. She paused for a second and she says, if you think it'll work, let's do it.
That quick.
Right now.
Wow.
She believed what I was, because I have had a history of if I try to do something, we try to make it happen. Everything we've got to do it. So that was in September. We sold everything we owned. I moved January 1st of '02, 3.5 months later. And when you move to Florida and you don't have a job, you can fish a lot.
Well, so you can fish generally every day. You can't really fish every day in Canton, Ohio, right?
No. I mean, look, the reality is you had short windows in Ohio to fish. I mean, everybody takes advantage of when they can. In Florida, you can not fish maybe every day, but pretty close.
Right.
And when I moved to Florida, U-Haul, bass boat, 2 cats in my front seat, it was quite the undertaking.
Right.
But when I moved here, I knew nobody. I have some family that lives in Bradenton, but I moved to an area that I knew nobody. And I was literally the nobody. I was just kind of fitting in.
So would you say during that time you were able to get the nickname Diamond J?
No, that didn't come from long time after that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I don't know. Somehow that has stuck. I'm not sure how that happened.
I don't know.
Thanks to Ken.
I've heard that nickname a couple of times.
Yeah, that's all you, buddy.
I know.
That's all you.
So how many years now are you in the guiding? So
20 years this year.
20 years.
Yeah.
And within that 20 years, so you came and you moved down. So when did you book your first paid trip?
Yeah, so because I didn't have enough time on the water, I had to spend, I sold my bass boat because I quickly realized that wasn't the program.
Well, bass boat doesn't work too well around salt water.
No, it was bad news.
Right.
So I sold my bass boat, bought a 1989 permit flats boat they made here in Fort Myers.
Right.
It was rough, but it worked. Had a Yamaha Pro 150 two-stroke, and I did everything wrong in that boat. I put it on sandbars, oyster bars, left it high and dry. I did a lot of learning curves in that boat.
Right.
And so I got my license in October of '03 and immediately started working. And the reason I started working right away is because I was a word of mouth guy. And I did a lot of things that were maybe at that time a little unorthodox to get into the industry. I started writing for a local magazine that came out every week in the newspaper. I started, and I'm not a writer by any means, but at that time, the editor asked me to write, and I told him I would write as long as he can correct it, because I write like I talk. So I started doing that and doing seminars, and when you're doing seminars, a lot of times people believe that you're the authority in that area.
Yeah.
And I was
you're trying to help people too.
Absolutely. And I was talking
I think Even us here are so against, even in the detail world, of what we call gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where I think a lot of people will get value with dealing with us, is we're happy to share any of the experience we have. And it sounds like that was kind of the direction that you took in the fishing guide business, right?
Sure.
Okay. So just make sure I was on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did some normal advertising type things like Yellow Page ads, which...
What's a Yellow Page?
Exactly. Exactly.
I remember the Yellow Page.
So you're close, right? I get
right
it.
there.
Yellow Page ads and rack cards for hotels and all that stuff that we did to try to get your name out. And coming from Ohio to an area that was rich with fishing guys that were born and raised here, I maybe wasn't welcomed.
Most liked right away?
Let's just say welcomed at first.
Okay.
But through time, persistence, and some integrity in the game, you earn a little bit of that respect. And it took me probably 3 or 4 years to at least be respected by some. Mm-hmm. It still wasn't all. But I just try to do my own thing, man. I promised my wife that I was going to make this work. So I had a lot riding on it. I'm still trying to rope the moon. You know what I'm saying? I've been married for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
So
it's a long time.
It is. And we left that business that we knew all too well. Mm-hmm.
To something that's completely unknown.
Exactly.
It's not like that you spent 10 years down here fishing all the time and literally knew tactics, spots, bait, season, like as because I'm a guide too. That's kind of how we met years ago.
That's right.
Right? Where different times of the years you target different fish.
Absolutely.
Different ways. You didn't know that.
No.
You know what I mean? So that's
straight learning curve right out of the gate.
That's scary.
It was. And I had a lot, as I mentioned, a lot riding on the deal, and I just kept my nose down and just kept working, doing everything I could to catch fish. And I really just replaced that largemouth bass and smallmouth bass with redfish and snook.
Well, I think that's an easy replacement.
It was.
Once you catch a snook, you don't really care about bass.
Well, that's true.
Nothing against the ditch pickle guys that are out there. Okay, but once you catch a snook,
I know.
There's no comparison.
100%.
And then you put your hands on a Silver King.
Oh boy.
That's a different
animal. And that's what ruined me right there.
Yeah, that ruins everybody.
Oh yeah. I hooked my first one under the 41 bridge in Punta Gorda by accident. And when I saw that joker come out of the water, I was like, I need to find more of those. And I really built my business on the red fishery of Charlotte Harbor and the tarpon fishery of Charlotte Harbor. And
because your business name is Silver Lining Charters,
that's right.
Correct?
That's right.
So I'm assuming that was kind of because of the Silver King.
Yes, there's a little 2 plays on that, but my grandfather always talked about the silver lining of ideas and things, happenings. And so I took that as there's always a silver lining. Yep. Regardless of how bad the day is, it's a beautiful office. You get to meet people from all around the country. Sometimes all around the world.
Yes.
So I've been very fortunate to be in the industry as long as I've had, and I've been fortunate to just stay relevant in the game as long as I have, but it doesn't come easy. And in fact,
nothing that's worth anything comes easy.
That's right. And in fact, it might even be getting harder.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not saying I'm the OG by any means, but when I started, there was no social media in the game.
Yeah.
And having to learn that as we go. You guys do a great job of that.
I appreciate it.
And that's one of the things that I look and get inspiration from guys like you that really understand that part of the game.
Right.
And I can see the growth that it makes, and that's why I've really invested heavily into the social media game and
it's
now
important
YouTube.
These days.
Oh yeah,
it is. I mean, that's just the way this generation communicates, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's rather important for any of you that's out there, if you're a detailer, you're a fishing captain, like, know that social media is a big part of growing your business now. And I know some of them are still out there to this day that are just, I can't do it, or I don't have time. Like, you don't have time not to do it.
Yeah.
If you essentially want to grow your business, you don't have time not to do it. So now that we've kind of dived into your past and how you got to your present, I really would like to know the difference on how you maintain that first boat, right? So it was a permit?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? 18 foot?
Yeah, 18 foot.
So like,
1989, so it had some time on it already.
All right, so she had some time on her. So how would you say your main maintenance, or if there was any at the time, how did that look as a captain, right? So to maybe let's talk about now, because you have 2 boats now, right?
Yeah.
So you have a 25-foot Pathfinder hybrid boat, which I think a 25-foot boat, period, a bay boat in our area is like the primo spot to be in by far. But kind of like I was talking about earlier, the different seasons, right?
Sure.
We start to get to shallow water season in the wintertime here, and that's where you have the Maverick, right?
Correct.
That you really do that backwater stuff that gets a lot skinnier.
Absolutely.
So if you wouldn't mind, let's kind of talk about the beginning of the permanent boat, right?
Yeah.
How would you go about washing it or maintaining it, like after a day off the water, or did you care? Or?
Yeah, so this may make you cringe a little bit, but I was that guy that would use bleach.
What? Use what?
I know. I would be the guy that at the end of the day, I mean, I still had in my mind keep things clean, orderly, organized on the boat. So I would come home and use either toilet boat cleaner to clean the stains on the outside of the boat. And the reason there was stains on the outside of the boat, many times it wasn't waxed, right? So the hull was, it was 1989, very porous. It was like a fighting lady yellow, a light color.
Boy.
Showed Charlotte Harbor all day, every day.
Yeah, so that tannic stain was there.
Yeah. And it wore me out. And that's why I use things I use.
Yeah.
Tow cleaners would clean the hull, and also bleach inside. Little did I know at that time the ramifications of using those products on gel. Gel coat. It's terrible. Now, I know that now, and I didn't realize that until...
And I don't think many people do.
No.
Right?
I see it happen all the time.
And people in your line of work, too, like day in and day out, they're on the water, right?
Yeah.
They're washing their boat 200 times more than the average customer.
Yes.
Because let's be honest, you said you're $250 a year.
Yeah.
I think the average boat owner is maybe 12 times a year, sometimes maybe 24, somewhere in there.
That's right.
So you're doing it 10 times more than they are.
Yeah.
Right. On
I
using
feel like
bleach and toilet bowl.
It's terrible, and I think what happens is people that use their boats often are, by the time you get off the water, it's hot. It's a quick and easy fix for right then.
Correct.
And in many cases, in our head, we're so focused on getting the day done. So an easy fix is what we just described. The bleach with toilet boat cleaner on the outside, it'll clean up the boat.
What were you using for soap?
Soap.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, my God.
Wow. So, I mean, look,
the bleach was your soap?
No, I use some probably Dawn dish soap. Look,
You're
I'm
making
not
me
saying
cringe
it was,
here.
No, I told you.
All right.
But
You're
it was
not doing that now, are you?
1989 boat. I wrapped the hull because it was easier to maintain, right? Back then, wrapping the boat was like the thing to do, right? I mean, you have the boat wrapped and had my logo down the side, and you couldn't miss me from all the way across the harbor. I mean, it was very evident.
Right.
But so I think the vast majority of people, boaters in general, not just fishing guides, but boaters in general, is they don't take the time to properly maintain the boat, i.e. using bleach or some type of harsh cleaners, which now we know that really disturbs the gel coat, whether it be the wax that's been used by the factory or even you spend the time to wax the boat.
Yeah.
You're just putting stuff on that's removing the wax.
But yeah, immediately. So I'm glad that you brought up that point. Like, people will go through and wax their boat. Now we call it sealant because wax is dead in our opinion, okay? Just because the development of technology has changed. However, to your point is like you would come off the water, spend a day, maybe a maintenance day because you didn't have a client or a trip booked that day, so you're doing maintenance on your boat. It's generally when charter captains do maintenance.
That's right.
A foul weather day or something along the lines of that. So you go through and you wax your boat and spend a few hours doing that. But then the next day you come off the water and wash your boat for 10 minutes with Dawn dish soap. It's now gone.
Brutal.
But nobody knew that was an issue.
I know. That was me. That was me. I was that guy that would be scrubbing the boat with maybe a harsher brush than needed.
Like a white one?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
whatever was available.
Well, listen, if you're using bleach to clean your boat, you're going to need a white brush. So,
Well, here's the reality. I was buying product to wash the boat for the immediate fix.
okay.
It was getting the stains off the hull. It was getting blood stains on the boat. On a 1989 boat, if it wasn't properly taken care of before I got it,
Yeah.
it was a magnet for stains.
Yes.
So that's where the bleach came in. Now, had I known back then to be able to properly seal it
Right.
and use proper cleaning tools to take care of that, might have been different. But I was new in the game. I was hyper focused on building the business.
Right.
But when people got on the boat, it was still clean and smelled fresh enough that we could go fish. Now, I know right now there's some, and probably some people are watching this, have their boats right now that have little molded corners or little stains here and there.
Yep.
They either have just wiped off and it's like, I'll deal with it later.
Yep.
But maybe they don't know about the stuff that you can use now to be able to
Right.
handle that. And I think that's part of my growth going through the industry of having to maintain the boat and now linking up with you guys for now 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
There's so much more in depth of what you can use to maintain your boat.
Well, let's talk about that. So when did you really start to realize that, hey, because that wasn't the only boat. So between, and I don't know if you the exact number, between that boat and the boat you have now, how many are you on?
So, well, technically I'm on 20 boats.
That's a lot of
So
boats.
it's a lot of boats.
So
my DMV record's really long.
So what number did it take till you really started?
Honestly, I think it was probably when I had to bring my boats to shows and events. So I would say probably 2008.
Okay. Where you had other people than your clients
Yes.
paying attention to the way that you maintain the boat. So what
Yes.
did you start doing differently? Now, granted, I understand that now since we've worked together, your education level when it comes to maintaining is
Sure.
higher than most by far. But what did you start changing then?
Well, the first thing, this is going to come to a shock to you, but I actually bought an orbital waxing deal, which I
The
technically...
big one
Oh yeah,
with the
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 two handles.
Oh my God!
Two handles.
Oh boy!
And I was that guy that would wax the boat, you put it on the pad, just take me hours to make it happen.
Do you remember the type of wax you were using then?
Honestly, I can't remember. It was, I mean, we're talking to that. I can't remember what happened last week, let alone.
All right. For those of
But-
you out there, he said it. He can't remember last week. I got it on record.
CRS, buddy.
Yeah, I know
But-
all about CRS.
So, but the reality is, I probably bought it from big box store, and who knows what it was.
Right.
Probably the same stuff I was using on my truck, so it could have been McGuire's. Who knows?
Yes, yeah.
But
Right.
yeah,
Bonite, it's been real popular for years.
it has.
It was.
In fact, very boring looking bottle, but works
for its time.
for its time, for
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing of when I knew I had to have other people. When the boat wasn't on the water, you can't, when it's in the water, you can't really see the outside from inside, right?
Right.
But when you're at a show and your boat is on display because you're working for, say, the very manufacturer that made it,
Yeah.
I need to make sure it's tight
You need
and
to
right.
represent well.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
So I would go through that thing from bow to stern to make sure it was tight and right. And that's when I really started spending more and more time and getting to understand how valuable that was to not just have a clean boat, but a very presentable boat at these shows and events, of which not only represented me, but
Sure.
also represented
Somebody else.
the very company that was supporting me.
Right. 20 boats later, right, there has now been a development, right, in
yeah.
technology, right? So what would you say are some items that you now have really made sure that is part of your arsenal, right, as a guide, and furthermore, keeping the boats looking nice? Because at the end of the day, if you're through 20 boats in this short term, you're selling your boats too.
100%.
Right, so
Yeah.
you want to make sure that that boat is in pristine condition, so when you do have that opportunity to sell it,
Yeah.
right, it's of value.
Yeah, for
Okay?
sure.
So what would you say that's part of your routine now are just must-haves?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a long list, honestly.
We've
because
got time.
I know we do. And I tell you that one of the things that make a difference in the guiding business is the guiding business is a people business, right? Mm-hmm. You could be the best fisherman on the planet, but if you don't have the people skills, those clients that get on your boat immediately can tell, right? Mm-hmm. So there's two impressions that happen. One, from the guide. The client to the guide. That's number one impression.
Yep.
Second impression is how the boat looks.
Agreed.
And I have been on those boats. Remember I mentioned I had hired 17, 18 guys prior to being a guide.
Yep.
And I've been on boats that were, I can't believe I'm jumping on this boat. And there's
It's
boats.
kind of like getting into a dirty cab.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And I
getting
think
into a dirty Uber.
You're absolutely right. And I think that part of that comes with a little pride too.
Sure.
I want to make sure that if you're spending the money with me, that not only are you getting on a boat that we're going to have a great time, hopefully we catch a lot of fish, right? But we're going to have a great time regardless. I tell everybody, if the fishing's terrible, I may have to break out my break dance moves on the bow of the boat.
Right. Nobody wants to see
Nobody,
that.
trust me, nobody wants to see that. But the reality is, I want to make sure that the boat is clean. And one of the first things that people comment on is how clean this boat is.
Yep.
So, when did you get it?
And how does that make you feel, too?
It feels amazing.
That's got to be like a good thing emotionally for you when you're getting that compliment as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I have people, they'll bust my chops a little bit and say, well, Jay, you're going to get a new boat in a year, maybe 2 years, and of course it's going to look good. No, that's not the case. I know what a day on the water catching fish and slime and just dirt and just people's sand on the bottom of their shoes.
Or somebody's coffee that's going down the deck that drove you nuts that one?
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. I now video that stuff to show them what's happening, or I'll show my wife. But people know that I have that set standard, and I've been fortunate enough now to fish a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
Over those 20 years, a lot of repeat clients, so they also get the program.
Right.
I don't have at the side of the dock where the little thing you step in to put the little protection on your shoes. Yeah, I don't have that yet. Yeah. But it's probably not gonna happen. That might be a little over the top. But the reality is, yes, it feels good when people comment on how clean the boat is, because I know how much time I put in to maintain it. And don't get me wrong, I have some help. If I'm in the heat of season, I'm filming, and maybe I'm filming in one boat and another boat that it's in my garage needs to have some love to it, I'll have a professional
hire a detailer,
that uses Stark, that comes in and will maintain the boat while I'm gone and away.
Right.
It's just utilizing my best use of time.
Oh, for sure.
Simple as that.
So again, like, what would you say is a part of your daily routine arsenal?
Yeah.
That is just a must now, since you've learned the way how technology helps.
Okay. Yeah. So a couple things. One, I used to go to the car wash all the time, just public car wash.
Right.
And maybe the water wasn't as clean as it should have been.
Right.
Although it's filtered. I mean, I'm sure it's okay, but it was okay for that time.
Yeah.
But now that I have my own pressure system at the house and water, I have my pressure washer with a little foam can hooked up with some Salt Clean. That's my number one.
Yeah.
I'll rinse it down with Salt Clean, and then I'll still rinse the boat, and then I'll back it into my garage, and now I just wipe it down and then spray Replenish. Salt Clean Replenish is like the daily deal, because I feel like if I clean the salt off, which is, as you know, our waters are heavily saturated with salt.
Yeah. So let's talk about Salt Clean a little bit for those out there that aren't familiar with a product like that, because there's many that are out there. Okay?
Sure.
Essentially what a salt remover does, because we're in the guide business, right? What the number one pushback I get is from a guide when I tell them to use Salt Clean or a salt remover product. What do you think they tell me?
The hose will wash.
Yeah, they rinse. I just rinse it off with fresh water. It's fine, right? So, and then the question that I always ask them is, where did that salt come from first? And where did that salt come from, Jay?
Well, from the water.
From the water. So the water is just a carrier. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So when you take a fresh water hose, after you're off a day of salt water, for those of you that are listening or watching, pay real close attention to this, is like, when you're rinsing your boat down with fresh water in a saltwater environment, all you're doing is pushing it.
Yeah.
Okay? Where is it getting pushed to? Hinges, latches, crevices. And then the next question I'm going to ask you is, when you start to realize or start to see corrosion on your boat, what areas do you see it at?
I see it, you mentioned the hinges.
Oh, hinges, right? Or
Yeah.
latches.
Latches, oh yeah, for sure. And what happens is, like on mine specifically, before I started using the salt clean, I would notice that the latches for each one of my hatch, the water that I'd rinse the boat off, all the salt would just end up in the little cubby of that latch.
Oh, like a low area.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
any low area, and then of course it's metal,
Right.
and I don't know, over time, it can start to stain a little bit. So,
And the reason for that, to carry on, is salt attracts electrons. Okay, so if you have a piece of metal that's attracting electrons, that's what creates corrosion. So that, like, you're very familiar with anodes
Yeah,
on a boat, right?
for sure.
Where that's pushes away those electrons, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully your Yamaha or whatever outboard that you're using doesn't start to corrode within
Yep.
because it's metal, right? Well, we're utilizing a product like Salt Clean, for instance. So let's get real scientific with it and explain why it works. Salt is made up of 1 part sodium, the other part chlorine. That's what makes salt. And essentially, when you introduce Salt Clean to coming off the water, the technical term is called chelating. So it will separate those two molecules. So if I separate the sodium and the chlorine that's bonded together, I no longer have salt, period. So it's not that I pushed it, I've actually eliminated it.
the dissolving part of it.
Yeah, it's gone. So, and I've proved it time and time again, because the boat that I had prior had a blackout board, which I think you would agree, and
Yeah.
everyone out there listening that has owned a blackout board in a saltwater environment understands what water spots are and understands what salt is on a blackout board, because it just
Absolutely.
shows more than anything. And I had to prove it to an individual in person, where was another guy that was like, man, I just always rinse it off with fresh water. So they were at my house, and we literally took a pressure washer, and taking mine, I use reverse osmosis at my house because I understand the importance of clean water too on the maintenance side of it. And I hit it with a pressure washer, right? Where the salt is laying over on the engine cowling. We let it dry. Guess what I saw? It was still there.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So then I did another demonstration and hooked the Salt Clean up to a water hose, not a pressure washer, and just turned a little valve, sprayed it, let it sit 15 seconds, literally 15 seconds, rinsed it back off with fresh water out of the water hose. So not heavy pressure, let it dry, it was gone. So that there is what it took to make that individual a believer. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that that's part of it, because I think that's huge for guides. An acquaintance of ours, Nestor,
Yeah.
right, did on his trailer. I don't know if you remember seeing where he tested Salt Clean on one hub of his trailer and fresh water on the other one.
I saw that.
For, I think it was a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the trailer hub still looked brand new where he was using Salt Clean, but you could see the
Yep.
rust corrosion start to come
Oh,
off
yeah,
the other trailer.
100%.
So shout out to Nestor, man. That was a great
Yeah, I
creation
don't
on
think
that
that
one.
people realize, like when I get off the water, and at certain times of year our salinity levels are higher. This rain is involved in the summertime, but in the wintertime especially, when I come off the water, I can literally take my finger down the top of the rub rail and have enough salt on my finger you could put it in a salt shaker.
Yeah.
So that is a big eye-opening. If you pay attention to that stuff, it is not just on your rub rail. It's
Yeah.
everywhere in the boat.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you're throwing the cast net, which now the whole boat is train wrecked with salt.
Oh, that's it's gotta drive you insane.
It does. It
Especially when we have that snot grass time.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Little slivers of hair grass, they wear me out.
Oh,
Wear me out.
Jesus. That's
So-
that's why you love, if you can, catching bait off the beach, right?
100%. Oh yeah, I'm all about that beach bait.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I think that learning what Salt Clean eliminates the amount of time it takes for me to maintain the boat.
Right.
And in my game now, especially because I've got lots of things going on,
Yeah.
time is everything.
Sure.
And to be able to hit it with Salt Clean, a quick rinse, and then I've even used Replenish while the boat is still wet.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's unbelievable. It's so quick. Now I have it on a system at my house where it is as quick to do it at home as it is to go through the drive-through, which drive-through car wash is
It costs money.
$5 to $10
Yeah.
per time.
Sure.
Right? And it's still never perfect.
No.
So inevitably, I'd wash it at the car wash, start heading home, and it would pour rain.
Of course.
And then all the road grime and stuff is all over the boat. I have to do it again. So being able to have that system set up, and I honestly set it up in my house for really honestly not a lot of money.
Right.
It's just I had to invest the time and the monies to make it more convenient to do it at home. And now that I can back it in, dry the boat off, and just get it dialed in the way I want, it's been a big deal in just maintaining the boat.
Sure, and like you said, you talked about Replenish. So for those of you out there, it's an SiO2 top spray that maintains the hydrophobicity of your boat, right?
Yeah.
So it makes things not stick, right?
Did you say hydro what?
Phobicity.
Oh my goodness, this is why I hang out with. It's highly educated stuff.
Yeah, I learned it yesterday. No, I'm just kidding. But again, with that, it's protecting your gel coat, right? It's keeping it hydrated so things aren't sticking to the deck, right? So you don't have to pull out harsh chemicals like bleach and stuff like that. So keep it sealed, keep it protected, and you won't have to deal with that 30, 45 minutes of heavy scrubbing with heavy chemicals because it's just simply not sticking. So it's going to make your cleanup process so much easier, right? And the other thing is because you are using Salt Clean with Replenish, Salt Clean is pH neutral, so it's not removing the Replenish that you put. There's other salt removers that are on the market that are out there that do a good job of removing salt, but they're more on the higher alkaline scale where it will strip the Replenish, kind of like your Days of Dawn dish soap where you're putting a sealant down and it's ripping it off. So make sure that you look into those products and make sure they work well with each other. But I know you have personally experienced something even better than Replenish.
Yeah.
A ceramic coating. So what would you say, right? Because it's not cheap.
No.
But as a guide, if you make an investment on a brand new boat or a newer boat, or maybe you restored an old boat, because we have a lot of guys that love those older style hulls and will spend a lot of money on restoring those boats, but go back to those old habits, right? So would you honestly say, and I want you to be candid, is a ceramic coated boat worth it? And if it is, why?
So to answer your question, is it worth it? 100%. And I can say that honestly because I've had both. I've had two boats at the exact same time, one ceramic coated, one not.
Right.
The maintenance and cleanup on the not ceramic coated, far more.
Far more as in
time. Far more time to just get it right. The ceramic coated boat, it's nothing as simple as just a wipe down, right? You still have to do your salt clean, and I still top it with Replenish.
You should.
That's my normal game, right? But the sheer maintenance and how quick it is to maintain a ceramic coated boat versus night and day. And honestly, you can even tell while running the boat, you get a little splash. It makes me get all warm and fuzzy when I get a little splash.
Everybody likes beads.
Oh,
water
I
beads.
see the water beading off, going to the back. I'm like, that's right. I invested in that part right there. So yes, is it more expensive? And I don't even. It's just depending on what you want to invest your money in, right? And I think that people that are either buying some of those older boats and restore them, if you're spending the money, you need to protect your investment. And I do it now because, as you mentioned, if I go to sell the boat, I want people to look at it as like, wow, this thing looks like it came off the floor.
Well, generally, after you have it coated and you have it done right by a professional, they usually look better than the day you bought it.
Yes.
So
100%.
Yeah.
100%. When I had my Maverick done, it was. And I thought it was absolutely beautiful from the very beginning. And I had it
when you got it, you mean?
Yeah. And I had it for, I don't know, a couple, 2 or 3 months maybe. And I know that most ceramic coat guys, they want to make sure that, look, if you can, bring it to me before it even hits the water. Right? Because it just adds some additional steps to get it right. Somebody that knows how to install properly ceramic coat is going to take the time and effort to get it right. And that's you'll hear prices of like, well, we can ceramic coat your boat for $700.
Yeah.
You're gonna get what you pay for that. And I think that's in your business.
Yeah, for sure.
That's one of the biggest arguments I hear. It's like, well, I can get a ceramic coat for $700. Well, this guy over here is $3,000.
Yep.
Do you think there's any difference at all? 100%.
Oh, there's a reason why those individuals are $3,000.
I will say though, I think the people, and I've been guilty of it on my truck, not this current truck, but a truck before. I had it ceramic coated back when that whole game was starting to come out.
Yeah.
It lasted maybe a year, and I paid what I thought was a lot of money at the time. But the difference is there's different ceramic coats.
There is.
And I found that, and a lot of it's just knowing what Stark has to offer, and just the stories, the positive stories that I've heard from using Stark products, has got me just that more dialed in on what the differences are.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can break it down to like the science side of it.
Well, like saying hydrophobicity?
Yes, exactly. But the reality is the end user needs to know that it's going to last. And to, like, circling back to when I picked up my Maverick, I used it for 3 months, and then when I had it ceramic coated, that whole thing changed. The look of the boat, it was far crisper. The gel was unbelievable, like mirror-like. Mm-hmm. And that was the cool thing that really set it off for me. And a lot of times, well, people, how do you know it's done right? For me, I can tell immediately just by putting my finger on the particularly the non-skid.
Yeah.
And for that matter, even all the slicks, you can put your finger on it and tell that it's done.
Yep.
And it doesn't go away. I mean, over time, yes.
Yeah, there's abrasion in time, and
for sure. And we live in a saltwater environment,
so
that's going to eat at it a little bit.
Absolutely.
But what I use to help is that replenish.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, I think replenish as a whole is like, in my world, it's the microwave. It's the microwave of product, because
I like that.
it is immediate gratification. Mm-hmm. You can spray that stuff on, wet or dry, wipe it off, pour some water on that joker, it's going to beat off. It's unbelievable.
It's just too easy. And let's touch on another hot button too, while we're talking about ceramic coatings, is non-skid, right? So many people are afraid of doing it because they think it's just going to be so super slippery, and be falling everywhere.
Yeah. Well, people have done that, having the wrong product.
Correct.
And I know of people in my circle that have had ceramic coating done on non-skid, and they have to wear like borderline cleats.
That's never good as a guide, right?
No, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Never good as a boat owner, period. Nobody wants to slip on their boat.
That's exactly right. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people year after year, right? So when they get on my boat and they don't immediately see, because it's not first of mind. They're worried about catching fish and having a good time. But when they see that it's easy to clean up, because I'll go behind them with a towel and clean up little spots here and there, whatever. But it's easy wipe up. They're like, that comes out of me amazing. Wow.
Do they ever say anything about like the water? How it reacts?
Oh yeah. Because they've never seen that before.
Yeah.
A lot of my client base is upper Midwest.
Sure.
So they'll come down and they'll get on the boat and they see water beating down the side. They're like, how's that happening? Mm-hmm. And then that opens the door to explain to them. It's like, look, we invest into, this is a tool for me.
Yep.
I need to make sure that it is tight and right all the time. And this is what I've done to apply to the boat to make it this way, and this is why it's doing that. And they're like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then on top of that, on the non-skid, it's not slippery. But you hit it on the head. I mean, there are so many that will have their boat ceramic coated, and they put it on the non-skid, and maybe it's the wrong product, and becomes an ice skating rink when it gets wet.
So educate yourself, right?
Absolutely. But the game has changed. We mentioned going back 20 years ago, but that game has changed in 5 years.
So if you had to put time, like how much time do you think in a year that you would save because the boat is ceramic coated on your cleanup time? If you had to put a number on it over a year, how much time do you think you would save over a year? 250 days on the water.
Yeah.
How much time do you think you would actually save because the boat is coated versus not coated?
Honestly, it's hundreds of hours. And that's not sugarcoating at all. I mean, maybe I spend a little extra time cleaning my boats.
Maybe.
But I want to make sure that it is tight right for the next day, right? So, and having had a boat non-ceramic code and ceramic code, the time spent on the non-ceramic code is far more. Simple as that. So you go into the amount of cleanup and tucked away, it's hundreds of hours shaved off of time spent on that boat.
In a year.
In a year's time, yeah.
So,
And
if that costs you $3,000 to ceramic coat the boat, is that worth hundreds
For me,
of
it
hours?
is.
Right.
And it should be for others. If you spend, I mean, now boats, 100,000, 150,
easy.
250.
Easy.
I mean, the money's, and I'm talking about just bay boat world.
Yeah,
You talk about 40, 50 footers,
Yeah, that's a different animal.
different animal. And those
And the bigger the
individuals-
boat, the more time it's going to take you to clean it. But granted, I think those guys and gals that have them really large 60-foot boats, they're probably paying somebody to clean.
I would imagine so, yes. But still,
Yeah.
time is money.
Absolutely.
And if you hire a company to come in and maintain your boat,
Yep.
it costs money.
It does.
So if the boat was ceramic coated, it would save time, money, and bottom line is we don't ever have enough time in the world. It's all we have, right?
Agreed.
So if we can shave off some time here in my world, if I can shave off some time clean, I can spend some time in the shop. I can spend some time with my wife. I actually still really like my wife. So we go fishing together. We
Yeah.
have a lot of fun, and that's part of just being able to dissect your amount of time spent on something and saving time on maintenance of the boat is a big key.
Yeah, for sure. Like, Jay, I really appreciate you coming in and joining us. But for those listening and watching, how can they find you, right? So
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to book a fishing trip with good old Diamond Jay
Well,
Withers,
careful now.
how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so it's captainj.com, CAPTJAY.com. And then I'm all over Instagram, Facebook. You just type anything in Google. I'm not hard to find.
Not hard to find.
Yeah.
And then what about for those that would be interested in watching Guidelines TV? How could they find
Yeah,
it there?
so Guidelines is available on Waypoint TV, YouTube. We're making a strong push on YouTube. We're going to put a lot of new content on there. And not just episode content. I'm talking like getting into the guts of the fishing side of things.
I like it.
Some tech tips, boat tips.
A lot of boat cleaning tips.
Yeah, hey, you got me on that one. 100%. And that's, honestly, I feel like I want to be able to deliver things that I want to learn.
Right.
And of things of my experience. And I feel like there's a lot of people that want to, like me, want to be able to learn stuff from just sitting in the comforts of their home.
Yeah.
So I feel like the seminar days, certainly are still around, but YouTube is super popular.
Well, you can reach a lot more people digitally than versus filling
Yeah.
up a room in Charlotte Harbor with 50 people.
That's right.
You can make one video and reach 50 people
Exactly
in a matter
right.
of seconds.
Exactly right. That's why this is on YouTube
Yep.
and
Yep.
on audio, right?
Yeah, Spotify, Apple, stuff like that.
Yeah,
You can
so
listen
that's
in.
really, I think that for me, for people to be able to see the content, YouTube is, I mean, it's #1 search engine in the world.
Yep.
Why
yep,
not?
Yep. Why not? So again, Jay, I really appreciate
man.
having you. Hopefully, maybe we can do this again
Yeah,
another
love to.
time and kind of like circle back on maybe there's some more new stuff coming out. So stay tuned to that. Again, I appreciate
Always
it.
is, buddy.
Thank you for listening, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you follow us on all the podcast type search engines there are. That way you don't miss any episode.